right. Thank you all for coming, and thanks for writing such a fascinating novel, Stephen.
Oh, well, yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah. It's really good to see everybody.
Yeah.
I like this microphone. This is good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have some questions for Stephen about his book. So we're going to start with a little conversation, and then there should be time for y'all to ask questions to the author also. So if you don't know, this book was inspired by Wikipedia. And so I was wondering why you, Stephen, like you've researched Wikipedia, and so you write about Wikipedia in the nonfiction sense. Like, what is so fascinating that led you to want to write a novel inspired by Wikipedia?
Well, just starting with how I got really interested in covering Wikipedia, I was in New York on a business trip, and I was on the subway at a subway station. Mm-hmm. And I remember reading about the history of the subway on Wikipedia on my phone. And I was just really wondering when it was built, and I was just looking it up. And then I thought, who has the time to write all of these pages and make them so detailed? Mm-hmm. And at that point, I had learned you could see the usernames behind it. And I reached out to them, and it was a high school student in Queens and a
Wait, so you're
college.
On the subway and you reach out to somebody that
you
saw
no when I got back, once I saw, and I was, because I was wondering if I could talk to them. I was like, you know what, you must have a lot of time and you're really dedicated to this. And that's just always stood out to me. The experts are this, and it ended up being a high school senior. Wow. And a college freshman who write all of this content about the subway, and they're like the experts on this. And when literally millions of people have read this page before, and so it's always stuck with me, right? Yeah.
So I want to hear more about that. But y'all, when you read the book, now I know the inspiration for one of the main characters. I'm gonna say.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
You think so?
Alex. Yeah, sure.
Is that the inspiration behind Neville?
Or for Alex? Yeah.
For Alex.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Alex. Oh gosh, now it's been a couple weeks since I've read it. But yes, I got some characters confused. But Alex.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Cool.
And I think when I first started, there were a lot of journalists who were talking about Twitter at the time and Facebook. But I always thought Wikipedia was maybe the more interesting platform, because it's about what are the facts, what's true, and how do we decide what's true, and what's the process for that. And I'm kind of glad that I got stuck on the Wikipedia beat and just kept with it. And it's a few years later I got the book. And in terms of it being a novel, it just always seemed like a suspense novel to me, that there's this conflict, and it's kind of mysterious how it works behind the scenes. And they're such characters. When they argue about what should be right or what should be on the encyclopedia, they have a really strong voice, and you can kind of in a novel, you can get in a character's head in a way you can't with nonfiction, and I think that helped the story.
Oh, for sure. The characters have a lot of depth to them. Which is your favorite character?
Oh, I don't know if I can answer. I think, I like Alex, the train guy, because he's idealistic, but he's also kind of intense. Yeah. I mean, not too much of a spoiler, but at one point he skipped school to edit the encyclopedia, and you wonder, is that the right decision? But he thinks it is, and
he's so passionate about it.
He's very passionate, right?
He knows it's the right decision.
And then another kind of real life inspiration, I was in China, and I met this guy who edited people's Wikipedia page for pay, like celebrities and businesses. And I remember thinking, this is so risky, because not only is that not allowed by the Wikipedia rules, but all of China, China bans the website Wikipedia. You could go to jail for accessing Wikipedia. And so this guy was just taking a lot of risks. And, he just always stood out to me, sort of as inspiration for a character.
Okay.
And that one's Nevin. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's juicy. So there are people in the world who care so much about truth and disseminating it that they're willing to risk, to put something on the line.
Oh, yeah, for sure. China has banned Wikipedia within mainland China since 2019. Mm-hmm. And they actually did that in the anniversary of Tiananmen Square, right? But there's still a lot of people in China who use the VPN to get around the firewall and edit. And meanwhile, people in Ukraine who are being bombed, I talk to them sometimes, and they're in a bomb shelter editing Wikipedia. They just think it's so important that the facts are represented accurately on the site. So yeah, people definitely definitely risk their safety for.
So it sounds like you've had a lot of cool conversations with people to ask them
Uh-huh.
about their experiences. How did you get in touch with these people who are editing Wikipedia in bomb shelters?
Yeah, a lot of times since I've been doing this for a while, they reach out to me, and instead of the new things, it's old school. It's emails, and you realize, after a while, you've had 50 emails with this person, just back and forth. They're telling you what's going on. I think Wikipedia editors, more than most, they like communicating in text because that's the way they write on Wikipedia, or Infopendium as it is in the book, and so that's their preferred way of communicating.
Wow. Okay, so you have all these emails with these people who are real life Wikipedia editors.
Yeah.
And so when you're researching for your book and creating these characters, do you just like compile all those emails and make notes about them and then create characters, or do a lot of the characters really reflect like one person, a specific person?
Yeah, usually you can kind of get a glimpse of a character from a person, but it can't be an actual person because that doesn't work as well for the story. And so really, I wanted to have the journalist perspective, because you need reliable sources from a journalist to have a Wikipedia or Infopendium as it is in the book. I like the kind of young, passionate high school student who's skipping school to work on the encyclopedia. I thought that was an interesting perspective. The guy who based in China, the paid editor. I just thought that was kind of, he's doing it for money, and lots of people do things for money, right? It might not be ethical, but it's how he edits the site and like his role, and then kind of the old timer person who's been just involved with it since early 2000s and kind of been stuck on the project ever since.
Yeah. Okay. So when you have built these relationships with these editors, some of the characters are pretty intense, like you said about Alex, but there's another character who's also very intense. Did you ever feel, I don't know, like, do you ever feel intimidated by any of these intense personalities of editors, or is a lot of that dramatized for the novel?
Yeah, I think that might be something that you get a little bit of inspiration from real life, because sometimes people put things in an email that they never would, in person. And one of the things right in the prologue that I wanted to do is you read the prologue and it's people editing the site, and it's sometimes they're being, they can come across as very mean, add content, delete content, add content. But then you end up in the book, you can kind of unmask them and like see who their personalities are and reveal who they are. And so that's something I kind of wanted to do in the book, is like put faces and kind of personalities behind all of these editors.
Yeah. Cool. If there's like one theme that you consciously approached in this novel that you would want your readers to take away, what would that theme be? Or a lesson? You can interpret this how you want.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I did this interview. It was really cool with NPR the other day, and that the person who was also interviewed with me, he was very pro Wikipedia, and I found myself talking a little bit about the flaws of Wikipedia. And then other times when people are being maybe very critical of Wikipedia, I'm like, well, why don't you get involved? I mean, you could just log in and you could contribute to this, and you don't have to complain about it. You can actually get involved. And so sometimes I don't know if I have just one lesson or one theme. I think we need to hold them both, right? That there's both good and bad about the way internet information works right now. And but I do think I just want people to realize how important it is, because whether you go to this site or not, it's like the information on the internet is shaping how we view events, and we need to be really knowledgeable about that and like think about the human processes that happen to like create a Wikipedia article or really any content on the internet.
Yeah. So I kind of imagine, do you all use Wikipedia? Yeah, okay. I was just wondering if this had gone a different way and y'all had said no, if you happen to know like the data on how many people use Wikipedia, because you just said that whether you go on that site or not, it's shaping like maybe how you see the world. So I'm wondering, how big is Wikipedia?
Yeah, well, good question.
How influential?
Yeah. Well, I've got to be careful, or else I'm going to get fact checked by a Wikipedia editor. But I think there's over like 1 billion, page views every year. But of course, China's blocking it, so that cuts off another billion people. But I always say, whether you go directly or not, I mean, it's at the top of every Google search result. It's ChatGPT, which AI tools, they're all trained by Wikipedia. So, and then now we have journalists, a lot of times get their information, in a pre-interview or whatever from Wikipedia. So whether you go there or not, it's definitely influencing you every day. And that's why I think it's, a good occasion to set a suspense novel, because it's like so much conflict, so mysterious. I was thinking beforehand, Interabang, if you don't know, is like a question mark combined with an exclamation point. That's kind of what Wikipedia is. Like it's a little bit of both. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you just brought up how ChatGPT is trained by Wikipedia, which I've tried to understand ChatGPT, and I'm not quite there yet of like how it works. But if you had written this novel after the big ChatGPT boom, do you think that would have influenced anything in the novel? Any events or?
That's a good question. I think, I worry in the AI world, who are the human characters going to be? So I don't even know how the sequel would work with AI, but I think that one thing that's happening now is that people don't go to Wikipedia directly as much with ChatGPT. And so I think that a lot of what the editors are doing is even more behind the scenes, because it's not directly attributable to Wikipedia. But then again, the editors, one reason I like them as characters is they're not like TikTok stars or anything. They're not like trying to do it for the fame. They've always been behind the scenes anyway, and so maybe they'll keep up with it, even this like new AI world. But I think it's always better when if you have the AI, it's much better for it to be trained by humans rather than like the AI training itself. That's very circular, and I think it leads to a lot of problems.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast where at the end there's a fact check, which is like, is this a fact check? But now I've noticed that the podcast host only reads like what's at the top when she searches it. Yeah. Like she's told us that. And so she is just reading that answer that I guess is pulled from Wikipedia, which is probably better than some sources. But it is curious when it doesn't show a source.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like the editors would think that this was maybe problematic. Right. Not being able to see the sources of the information.
Yeah, well, especially Alex, who comes from Russia, or his parents come from Russia, and has been in a country with so much misinformation. He's going to be fighting it on the site, and I think that's part of his character.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love the international political realm that you bring in. What aspect of this book did you find the most challenging to write?
Well, I think one thing I was a little bit nervous about is there are a couple. So I was at an event in St. Louis, I guess 2 nights ago, and there were a couple actual Wikipedia editors. I don't know if there are any Wikipedia editors here. Maybe we'll find out later. But maybe in the Q&A we'll figure out. But
anonymity.
And I did have to simplify some things, because Wikipedia can get kind of complicated. There are a lot of different policies and rules. And so I tried to just get like 4 main policies, and I called it aim for neutrality. And it's not, no one's ever perfect. No one can ever be perfectly neutral about anything, but they can aim for it. We need better sources. This idea that like we need better sources from journalists and from the media in order to form accurate, trustworthy Wikipedia, or infopendium as it is in the book. Anonymity, which is a difficult word for me, and I'm having to say it a lot lately, but anonymity is fundamental. This idea that you can be anonymous on Wikipedia, I think that matters, because if you're editing in a country like China or Russia, you need to be protected else. I mean, Russia has, by the way, started detaining and doxing editors and really making their lives miserable just for like contributing to the cause of free information, and then keep developing. It's just keep developing as the 4th principle, and it's like just keep going. You got to keep building the project, and and I think the editors, they debate like what it means, like which direction should you keep developing, but that's part of it too. So I guess the hardest part was kind of I had to forget some of the stuff I knew from Wikipedia journalism, but also make it like an engaging and like pretty realistic story.
Oh yeah, because you
Yeah.
can kind of get caught in the minutia of
right.
facts.
And that, I'm thinking about the question I got in St. Louis. It's like, well, why did you do this? I was like, well, it's already 400 pages. It can't be, it can't be that much longer, right? That would add even more detail.
Well, yeah. So that is one thing I was wondering too. Like, if you could write a novel that could be as long as you wanted it to be, and people would still read it. What else would you have wanted to be in there? Because probably not all the different rules and regulations of Wikipedia, but what else?
Well, that's a good question. I had this character Deja, and she's a librarian, and I think I've always respected librarians, book people. We're in a bookstore. I think we probably all have a lot of respect for her, but I didn't get as much in her head as I did the other characters, and it'd be interesting to see her perspective. Throughout.
Could there be a follow-up book centering
on
Deja?
I don't know. With the AI might have to be the other character then. But maybe I was telling someone earlier I did work at the Fed for a while, and now I've got inside Wikipedia. Maybe it'll be inside the Fed for the next book, like a mystery. Yeah. And you can. It's already kind of a dark cover. I wonder what the cover would look like for that one. Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah. Okay. And so we have your. I really wanted to ask this earlier, but then he said something else interesting and it sidetracked me. But you told me about one of your favorite characters, and I'm also wondering if there was a character who it was harder for you to be empathetic with. This kind of goes back to the question or what you were telling us about when you were talking about the pros and cons of Wikipedia.
Right.
So, is there a character where you didn't really want to write the character?
Yeah, I had this character of Ed, and for various reasons, some of them legitimate. He gets really angry at the Internet Encyclopedia site, and I wanted to kind of embody that character and his anger, and he's wanting to get rid of Wikipedia or Infopendium as it is in the book. Now, do I think that? No. I've written about it for 7 years now, so I don't actually want to get rid of Wikipedia. But in the moment when I was writing that character, I did really feel it, and I think it took a while, like you're saying, to get into that character, that kind of really destructive impulse. But I think in fiction, what you can do is you can just get inside of the head and say, for this character, Wikipedia is an institution, and it's an institution that he wants to bring down, and what would be the consequences of that?
Yeah. So I think it might be easier for the audience to grasp why we would want Wikipedia, especially when you're talking about people being jailed for, the pursuit of truth and, putting information on Wikipedia. So what are some reasons that, what are the negative? What's the dark side to Wikipedia?
Yeah.
Why would anyone be fighting against it?
Well, I think that there's concern. Well, so there's concerns about, and I hesitate to use this word, but is the encyclopedia going woke, right? When it's talking about all these different people that haven't historically been on the encyclopedia. But I think it's fair to say that Encyclopedia Britannica, had a lot different people who were considered the notable people back then than we have now, and we have different kinds of diversity and things like that. Also, sometimes it's not even just that bigger thing, it's just on one particular page. For my one character, it's they don't like something about their family member, and I did with the radio show the other day. The person who called in was like, I'm angry that SpongeBob has a Wikipedia page and my father doesn't. And I was like, I don't know who your father is. I don't know anything about it, right? But if there's sources about that person, if they're notable, and we don't want to have, not everybody should have a Wikipedia page or an Infopendium page. Got to keep referring back to the book, but because we don't want everyone and their cat to have an article, but we do, it's always, people are going to disagree on how famous or notable you have to be before you get included in the encyclopedia.
Interesting. So theoretically or practically, really, if somebody really wanted someone to have a Wikipedia or Infopendium page, could they get coverage ask journalists to write an article, so then there would be a citable source, so then it could go on Wikipedia. Like, is that something that people do? Do people want it that badly for people to be on Wikipedia, that they get the press in order to get a page?
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
I think, I've got a, so it can happen that way with press. I think the more common way is they get a consultant or like a paid Wikipedia editor. I always remember there was, again, one of the bases for my characters. He had an athlete, a professional athlete, who was saying, "Hey, I was a great baseball player in my time. I was really fit and really good shape. Can you please change my Wikipedia article so that my featured picture is the one where I was in good shape and not now the way I look 20 years later?" And I'm kind of sympathetic to that, but I mean, the one guy, it's a little bit of a vanity project, right? To just change the way you look. And so I think that, people are, it's an ecosystem, right? So there's the journalism and the encyclopedia page, and they're all kind of connected together.
Yeah. In that example, I mean, if the page is there because they're an athlete, it seems like a picture of them being an athlete would be the most appropriate.
Well, that's good wiki lawyering right there. That's good. Yeah, that's the way that you advocate for something.
Fair and accurate.
Yeah.
I personally know one person who got a Wikipedia page, and then there was a lot of drama about it. Like, she shouldn't have gotten a Wikipedia page.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
She's an author and a professor at Texas A&M, and she was like, "I didn't ask for the Wikipedia page.
Right.
This feels weird."
Well, I do tell people I don't even personally want a Wikipedia page, and I tell that, and people think, "Oh, you're humble." I'm not that humble. Everyone's here tonight. But what I mean is, everybody who emails me, and it's probably one every other week, is upset about their Wikipedia page. You just don't like. People don't like being simplified to a few lines of text, right? And they don't like. Maybe one thing is wrong and the rest of it's right, and so you don't like it. But if the book, The Editors, gets a Wikipedia page, I'm fine with that, even though that's a little bit meta. I think that'd be cool. Yeah,
that would be cool. So let me see if I have some more questions.
Well, I was going to say, the other thing that we haven't talked about yet is, there is foreign interference or attempted interference on the internet. We know this, and what I had in the book is China was really trying to downplay the pandemic at the beginning, saying it wasn't a virus, or wasn't something that was going to actually be as influential and have the effect on our lives that it did. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the story too. We end up with there's the commercial stuff where people are paying for edits one way or the other, but there's also just, I guess, entities, countries that are really trying to influence the narrative one way or the other.
Yeah, I wonder, and you explored this in the book, like when we think about what countries are trying to influence the narrative, but then if most of the editors are from a particular country, then one country already is influencing the narrative, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that complexity of like what counts as maybe the knowledge that is the most neutral or objective versus like what is a force shaping knowledge? Sure.
Well, I think that, to the extent there's bias, it might be because of the people who edit the site, right? In the base of editors. At one point, there were a lot more articles, for example, on Star Trek than there were like cities in Africa. And it's like, okay, well, in terms of importance, it probably would be, there are many people in Africa. And so I think that you could see how the interests of the editors would actually affect the content. Mm-hmm. And I think that certainly happens. Yeah.
So is there a solution to that, or does there need to be a solution? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, sure, anyone can edit the site, but there are only a few thousand people who are highly active editors. And I just think that's so interesting. So it's a few thousand active editors on English Wikipedia and literally 1 billion active users on TikTok. So, and you wonder which one's more important, right? But people, most of us, I would say, are pretty passive consumers of Wikipedia or just information generally, and we don't take that extra step in getting involved And so, I mean, I encourage people, not everyone needs to become a Wikipedia editor, but if you're interested in it, and if you've complained about it before, maybe do get involved, right? Because it is easy. You could just log in and start, and you could, interact with the editors, and you don't have to do it every day or anything like that. But I do think that is maybe one takeaway from the book, that people get involved and they get interested, right?
Yeah. And then I guess we kind of have that cyclical pattern of like, if you do want to write about something, but it's harder for you to access the information to write about it, like there's somewhat of an external problem if you can't get enough articles about a topic.
Yeah, sure,
right?
sure. Yeah, that's why I wanted the journalist perspective too, because I know the Wikipedia editors are always saying, "Hey, we need more articles," and the journalist is saying, this is hard. She in the book, she's struggling with financially to sell the articles, and I think we have that with issues with like local media here, how hard it is. And if we don't have a robust media system, then it's pretty hard to have a good encyclopedia.
Good. Yeah. What else about the book have we not discussed that you think is important or you'd like people to know about?
Yeah. Well, I got a good question the other night about how it works when someone's kind of trying to manipulate the site. And one thing I did do that is a little bit of like a novelist simplification of the novel is one of the, I'd say, morally ambiguous characters, Nevin. He's trying to advocate for all these changes, like sort of think about, if he was advocating for the athlete, like we were talking about, how he would do it. And he uses just 2 or 3, they're called sock puppet accounts, to say, hey, this isn't just me that wants this, other people agree. And, they're all kind of advocating for this together. And I think one thing that is different in the novel is it's just 2 or 3 kind of voices. But in real life, that person might have like 40 sock puppet accounts, right? Because it's not that hard, right? And to register a new account.
And this is their livelihood
This is
because
their
they're getting
livelihood.
paid.
Right, they're getting paid,
yes,
right?
they have a lot.
And it is like that. I always forget the name of it, but that game where you're just like whack-a-mole. It's whack-a-mole. You're just trying to identify the different sock puppets. It's totally different. Yeah.
Okay. If this were dramatized,
Yeah.
would it be like a 2-hour suspense movie?
Ooh, I think in this day and age,
Would it be like hour-long Netflix, like a whole series?
Maybe like a 3-part, 4-part, 3-part miniseries. Yeah. Whatever pays more. No, I'm just kidding. But no, and then someone was asking, I think maybe Allison, Brian Williams' daughter, Allison Williams, who was in the show Girls. I could see her as a Morgan.
Oh my gosh, she'd be good at.
Yeah, there's some connections there. So maybe she's a more likable character than she was in Girls.
And
I
she
don't know.
does.
Yeah.
Well, after Girls, she's mostly done horror movies.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like Get Out, Megan, right?
Right. Yeah. This Wikipedia story will be easy compared to that, right?
Yeah, she would be gonna like that. Okay. Do you think Morgan would be the central character of a show?
I think so, because
she's one of many in that book.
What you need is someone who's coming from outside of it, and that's kind of her role. She's coming outside and like learning about it, and that's the way most readers are. That's the way most of us are, and I had that in my articles at Slate too. Sometimes I'd have, we get pretty high page views. It'd be like 30 or 40,000 people read the piece about what's going on Wikipedia, and then only like a dozen people are actually doing the work on Wikipedia. And so I think it's more important to have that outsider's perspective to bring people into the story.
Yeah.
I want to, before we keep moving back and forth, if you guys want to open it up to any kind of questions, we have time for like 3 questions before we move to signing.
Hey, how's it going?
And I should say, full disclosure, I was in another lifetime a former teacher of Mr. Harrison.
Yeah.
Feel free to dodge this question.
Yeah.
I'm just, you're talking about, China and other countries that want to have their imprint on everything that's printed. And of course, that's got to be a monumental task. How about just in our country, and the unbelievable amount of partisanship that is going on in this country? It's almost like every subject can be, pulled in one direction or another. How on earth this kind of polar, some of these polar discussions. I don't know if you could even give a low, what do you call it, low risk kind of topic, and how people have tried to, how do we keep it from going to this extreme or that extreme? Can you give just a simple example of how that might be done?
Yeah, well, I think there has to sometimes be compromise on an article to reflect, and it's a compromise in the name of what is actually reflecting the truth. I'm just thinking of the book, Alex, the guy who really likes trains. He's really interested in high-speed rail. One of the villains has an interest in, because of his shipping company, has an interest in not having high-speed rail, and so he's paid the consultant to tarnish all the Wikipedia articles about that subject. And so I think that I would say Alex is right to fight the misinformation, right? But he needs to check himself when he is, there's probably a better word for it, but like being a fanboy about high-speed rail, because he's not, that is not neutral either. And I think that the reason I like aim for neutrality is because if you aim for this is better for my political party or this is better for mine, you're going to go astray. But if you aim for neutrality, then understanding that you're imperfect and kind of recognizing that you're imperfect, then hopefully you'll have a better project at the end. Yeah.
So one of the coolest things about the book is all the different perspectives that you write about. You know, different characters with different jobs and different countries under different regimes. You mentioned like potentially writing more books on this subject. Do you imagine expanding the characters that you've already developed, or writing from the perspective of new characters who are in new countries or have new perspectives?
Well, I've been kind of, for this next one, I've sort of been studying authors that I like, and one of them, Michael Connelly, he uses a journalist character and a cop character kind of recurring, and I was like, oh, I could use Morgan for other books, and you can end up with the editor's cinematic universe or something. I don't know, but yeah, that'd be kind of neat. Yeah, but there at least 2 or 3 of them that was like, I think their story kind of ended at the end of this one, and I'm fine with that. It's also a very particular time, 2019 to 2020, and I remember thinking during that time that this is when the book happens, that was just really, really difficult time. We're still in difficult times, but I think the pandemic was really hard too. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah, sure.
There's a scene in the book where some folks are, I believe, trying their hand at writing a Wikipedia article for the first time. The editors jump in and rip it apart. When someone does want to become an editor, do they learn by doing, or is there any sort of onboarding or training that they go through so that they are up to date on policy, rules, and editing standards and things like that?
There's a lot of learn by doing. I think it is more successful when it's kind of like a classroom environment. And that's actually part of the scene in the book. There is a classroom, there is supervision. And, I keep on, and I had this in the book too. People, let's say that article gets deleted. Someone can come across really mean when they do something just in text. And I think because you don't have a face to the name, you kind of just associate the worst with them. And but I think in that particular scene, they're right. There is like a bad motive there. But I do think Wikipedia, probably all these kind of older sites, could do a better job. And I think that next week I'm talking to someone, she just won like Wikipedia Editor of the Year, and she's Gen Z, and she does it all on her phone. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's just crazy. I couldn't do that on that tiny of a screen. But maybe that is the future. I don't know. So I think that, like any institution, you kind of need to keep the lifeblood of like new people who are really committed in order for it to work.
Okay. I want to say thank you to Stephen and thank you to Zoe